Hi everyone, I'm Faith, a product manager at GovTech, and with me is Petrine, our UX designer. Today, we're excited to share how we've applied UX principles to improve developer productivity on Apex, the Singapore government's API platform. So I'm sure everyone here has worked with APIs one way or another, and you definitely recognize that APIs are really powerful. At their best, they help developer teams move faster, integrate reliably, and scale with confidence. But if we're being honest, APIs can also be really frustrating to work with. There are problems like unclear documentation, not knowing where to find the APIs that you need, and integration hiccups, especially when you get a bunch of errors and you don't even know why or how to fix them. And when you look at the full API lifecycle, from design and security to onboarding, discovery, integration, and monitoring, you realize that there are many points where things can go wrong or feel unnecessarily complex for both API publishers and API consumers. Each step represents different UX challenges for both sides of the platform. And as product manager and UX designer working on Apex, the Singapore government's central API exchange, we have experienced this firsthand. Today, Apex powers over 3,000 APIs across 38 government agencies, handling more than 150 million requests a month. So today, we want to share about our experience building an easier and faster API platform for developers to use. On this platform, we serve two key groups: API providers who want to publish APIs cleanly and securely, and app developers who want to build great apps quickly and confidently. And Apex is the platform that bridges these two groups together. So we've realized that there are some common pain points across the API providers and consumers that we've worked with. On the API providers end, they're concerned about maintaining good and consistent API standards, maintaining their API lifecycle, and reducing configuration errors for both themselves and their consumers. On the app developers' end, they face pain points surrounding API authentication, connectivity tests, and integration with their current system and workflows. So we asked ourselves, how can we create the best experience for the developers using our platform? That was the guiding question behind the work that we walked you through today. From the start, we anchored everything in research. We ran user interviews to deep dive into their motivations, goals, and concerns. We ran usability tests to observe firsthand how our users interact with our product. And we set up a Friends of Apex task force, which is a group of trusted agency partners that we can then test early concepts with. So zooming in to Friends of Apex, by co-creating with our Friends of Apex, we saw faster feedback loops and more relevant solutions. And this not only improved adoption of our product, it also built trust and gave us clearer insight into real-world usage patterns. So based on all the research that we've been doing over the years, we have distilled it into 5 key considerations of developers using our API management platform, which we then translated into a corresponding 5 design principles. The first consideration is that many of our developers use our portal infrequently, when they are doing the initial API setup and subsequently only for credential rotation or for user access management. And it's not a platform that they use every day. This means that our platform must have information that is explicit and unambiguous, and that we have to reinforce key API concepts at every entry point. By prioritizing clarity over brevity, we make sure that our infrequent users receive the clear guidance they need to reduce confusion and enhance confidence. Secondly, we realize that for developers, efficiency and accuracy matter a lot. Developers are always optimizing processes and want to get things done as quickly as possible while reducing risk. That's why we've realized that when designing our platform, implementing guardrails for destructive actions is really important. This helps to prevent accidental misconfigurations by providing safeguards for critical actions. These error prevention mechanisms improve the accuracy of user interactions and reduce overall risk. Thirdly, developers dealing with APIs are often operating under a high cognitive load. That's why it's important for us to provide hands-on contextual help at their point of need. be it creating or publishing APIs, managing API authentication methods, or rotating credentials. The principle of progressive disclosure, which is to display information and guidance only at the relevant step of the user journey, helps to reduce the cognitive load. Fourth is that for developers, seamless integration to their existing systems and workflows is key. That's why we've come up with the principle to support multimodal interactions wherever we can, so that we can cater to diverse developer workflows by offering multiple ways to achieve the same goal. For example, code artifacts, form-based interfaces, or other evolving methods. And lastly, we also learned that developers have a huge preference for hands-on learning over passive reading of documentation. Therefore, when we're designing our platform, we seek to encourage iterative experimentation to cater to this preference. We enable quick feedback loops so that developers can test, tweak, and validate configurations with minimal friction. By providing a high feedback environment, it reduces risk for the developer and fosters learning by doing. And so now, I'm going to pass the time over to Petrine, our UX designer, to demonstrate how we have applied these 5 principles into our design and development of the Apex API portal.
Okay. Hi everyone, my name is Petrine and I'm the UX designer for GovTech and Apex. So I'll be going through on how we implement these principles into our design. Okay, next. Okay, so we have 5 principles in action. Okay, the first one is that we want to prioritize clarity over brevity. And what this means is that we want to prioritize clear and unambiguous communication even at the cost of brevity. Next. Okay, so the problem is that many of our users are infrequent portal users. They may not use our portal frequently enough to be able to understand some of the terms that we use. So some of these terms may be unfamiliar to them, may be confusing for them. So we wanted to make sure that all these are clear and explicit to them, even if it meant having more text. So you can see from the example on the right, we actually put in a lot of explanation on what all these mean, so that users can understand what all these are before they proceed. So this is something that we decided that the trade-off is that it is more cluttered, but we also decided that a more cluttered UI can be managed and softened by good layout and visual hierarchy. But ambiguity is something that cannot really be designed around. So the outcome of this is that less support is needed and there is better task completion from our users. Next, we also implemented guardrails for disruptive actions with confirmation steps, validation checks, and error prevention mechanism. Okay, so the problem is that there was an incident that happened last year that a user wanted to rotate his own API key, but accidentally rotated his entire organization's API key. So as a result, all the API keys started failing, but he did not know the significance of his action until all the API keys started failing. So from this incident, we wanted to ensure that there is no risk of accidental misconfiguration, and we wanted to implement confirmation prompts and validation before all these disruptive actions. So you can see on the right side, this is a model that will come out before you delete your application. So before you delete your application, we first explain what is the consequence of deleting your application. You will first lose all your associated data, including keys and API subscription, and this is a permanent action. So we first wanted to ensure that users understand their consequences. Second is we also wanted to add friction to this. So we wanted them to type in their application name before they can proceed. But we also know some of the application names can be very long. So we have this copy button over there for them to copy and paste the application before they confirm and proceed to delete the application. So the outcome of this is that there has been reduced critical errors and support tickets like the one last year. Okay, next. Next, we have number 3. We want to provide hands-on contextual help by having interactive and relevant helps that reinforce key concepts without overwhelming them. So the problem is that developers had to dig through tons of documentation when they are unfamiliar or don't know how to complete certain things. So we wanted to embed all these helps into our portal so that they do not have to leave their flow to look through documentation to accomplish certain tasks. So you can see from the example over here, Before an application can consume this API, we guide the developers through essential setup steps with interactive checklists. So first we describe what the step is, and then we explain why the step is needed, and then we have call to action buttons that allow users to complete the step. So they do not have to leave their flow halfway to complete the prerequisite, but they can all complete in this flow by clicking on this call to action button. And then we also have instant visual feedback over here, where it will change when to green when it is complete. So this embed help can allow user to stay in flow without having to leave what they are doing. Next, we also have playgrounds everywhere on our website, because we know some of the developers, they don't learn well through reading documentation. They learn better by doing and practicing and playing. So we have all these playgrounds that allow them to learn through playing. And lastly, you can see the difference between these two pages. On the Discover API page, we have help and resources that are relevant to discovering APIs. But on the applications page, we have help and resources that are relevant to the applications page. So we want to be able to provide the right help at the right place. So users do not need to go to another place to find for help. So this will allow faster learning and reduce their cognitive load. So next, we also support multimodal interaction by designing for diverse developer workflows. So the problem is that one-size-fits-all interfaces did not suit all developers. So we supported both form-based and code-based interfaces that leads to a common outcome. So you can see in the next slide, to create an application, you can create via our UI by filling up the form, and then you can fill out the form, you submit the form, and then you have created your application. But for users who prefer a code-based interface, they can actually upload their code, and then they start this feature on our portal called APIscene, and then the same outcome will be achieved. An application would have been created. Okay. Next. We also encourage iterative experimentation with real-time validation. So the problem that developers face is that they fear breaking things. So we have this linter UI on our portal that enable a safe space for our developers to test, tweak, and validate their codes. So you can see on the example on the right, when there is an error or warning on the code, it will be reflected on the right side panel. And then user can click on the warning to go to the line of error, and then they can tweak, and then it will be reflected. Fifth, can you play yes. So you click on this line of error, and then it will be shown here, and then you can tweak your code. And then it will be gone because it has been fixed. Yes, so this will give our developers more confidence and reduce the errors. Okay, so next. So what are the impact highlights? So ever since we implemented some of these design principles, there has been 0 major API incidents after we have our guardrails for disruptive actions, and we have 70% reduction in support tickets relating to API authentication queries and publishing relevant interactive playgrounds. And of course, we also have year-on-year improved satisfaction scores since the enhanced API portal was launched in mid-2023. So the key takeaways for anyone who is looking to build developer tools or working with developers, these are the 3 takeaways from our experience. So you can design for context of use, because developer tools don't exist in a vacuum. Understand how often, when, and alongside what your platform is used to guide design decisions. And we meet developers where they are. The platform should flex to support the varied workflows and levels of familiarity different developer teams have, and accelerate feedback and learning. The developers learn not by reading, but by iterative testing. So we shorten the feedback loop so that they can build fast with confidence.